Well, Microsoft and Sega have just struck up a super game partnership, and we think Sega may be somewhat of a sleeping giant. There are very interesting things going on. This partnership is very interesting and follows a very successful Game Pass collaboration between the two. So let's dive into this. And I think this is the sort of thing that could actually yield us some pretty damn good, interesting games, including the revival of some IPs that would be really cool to have back. So, let's get into this. Right. Earlier this week, Sega announced a new strategic alliance with Microsoft. This is going to see Sega develop games using the Azure cloud platform, provided by Microsoft, of course. And the deal has been agreed in principle, and it's going to let them produce large-scale global games in a next-generation development environment built on Microsoft's Azure cloud platform. And this alliance is also going to figure into Sega's long-term strategy and their mysterious super game initiative. Why make video games when you can make super games? God, I can't wait until somebody decides to make an ultra game. Yeah, so, which is basically, it's a recently announced plan to develop titles based on the 4 company pillars of global, online, community, and IP utilization. And we are going to have some very, very funny slides to show you soon. Of course, they have their, official press release. Oh, blah, blah, blah. We're very pleased to announce a strategic alliance. It's exactly what you expect from a press release. I mean, no harm to them, but it's a press release. We all know what they are like. Microsoft saying, together we will reimagine how games get built, hosted, and operated with a goal of adding more value to players and Sega alike. Who knows? I mean, who knows what Azure actually means for all of this? It's basically just Microsoft's big cloud platform. So, yeah. See that in the design of games.
So, I imagine knowing Sega and how they work, possibly in some harebrained scheme to do something with it, almost in the same way Crackdown 3 was very much, this is only possible through the power of the cloud. And everyone's like, where's the game? Oh, it's out. It's shit. Oh, okay, cool, great, fantastic. But I think it's more because they do mention specifically development platform. Next generation development environment. So I think it might just be them going, we need to reevaluate how we're making games. Can we actually leverage modern tech to get, global game development on the go using cloud stuff instead of having everyone to do whatever they need to get it running locally and stuff like that? So I think it's more just them sort of maybe making it into the future eventually, development-wise.
Probably a bit more than a strategic alliance to adopt Microsoft Teams.
Oh, God. I mean, what's surprising me?
Even thinking about Azure, Microsoft Flight Sim.
Yeah.
That's a game where that would be an absurdly chunky file size if it was not for the cloud streaming that is a part of how that game is architected. Yep. Now, of course, this is just a continuation of Microsoft and Sega being cozy. Previously, they had a big relationship in Game Pass. Like, if you want to get Yakuza, head over there. Their SVP of commercial publishing, Anna Downing, in February said they were very happy with the results. She specifically called out 2 Point Hospital, which reached over 3 million players worldwide because of Game Pass, which is pretty damn nice for an indie hospital sim. I mean, shit. So, with that said, let's talk about the super game. Now, here's their strategic portfolio. And if you look at the axis here, I can do some cutting-edge business analysis where they have decided to do nothing that is low profitability and low growth potential.
Smart.
Big approve. But basically they're, in this slide, splitting it up 3 ways. So strategy 1, which is high global growth potential and high existing profitability, and that is establishment of strong IP, which is recognized as a global brand. That means Sonic, Persona, Phantasy Star Online, Total War, and Yakuza, all which do super well for Sega. Now, their high profitability, low growth potential, because it's domestic, is domestic mobile games, which on their side I'm not super aware of, but maybe you are, and of course amusement machines. So like the patchy parlors and stuff that are still a pretty big feature in Japan.
So I actually don't really know very much about their mobile stuff, but what I do know is Spotify baited the shit out of me by throwing me this incredible song. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. What's this from? Oh, Phantasy Star Online. Interesting. Oh, Idola Phantasy Star. Oh, it's a fucking mobile game.
Yo,
it's just a. I don't even know if it got a European release, but obviously the soundtrack got enough of a release to be on Spotify.
Yeah.
So I'm like, they're doing a good job, because if I were the kind of person to play more mobile games, literally just that appearing in my Discover Weekly would have sold me on it, because it was very good. And that's the kind of thing that mobile games really are very getting strong at. And if Sega have shown that they can do a little bit of that with PSO, then I think they're actually kind of... That's why I think of them as a sleeping giant. There's so much potential in them with PSO specifically and stuff like that. They just need to kind of shape up and actually push forward.
And we'll get to that potential soon. They have another slide about, it just suggests what they could be doing next. Now, their next thing, though, priority strategies for 5 years is strategy 2, creation of super game. So creation of titles that can be expanded globally. So basically a big chungus of some description. And then their other strategy is expansion of past IP libraries. So utilization of past IP and support subscription. So to get into that, actually, I'll just skip ahead here. So we, of course, have their active IPs that we know about. However, there are their past and dormant IPs, which are under examination for remastering, remaking, and rebooting. Those things. Crazy Taxi. Bit old school. Yep. Hard to see what a Crazy Taxi would look like today. Jet Set Radio, though, I think there's a lot of gameplay in Jet Set Radio that could go down really well.
Yeah.
I mean, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remastered did super well.
Yeah, there's a real hunger for a couple of these, specifically Jet Set Radio, because that was such a sort of cult hit.
Yeah.
Especially with the person behind the music, Hideki Naganuma, being, doing a great job being on Twitter and kind of, basically just going, if they want me anywhere back near that, I'll be there.
Yeah.
And even trying to work on their own equivalents and kind of trying to muscle in that market without the IP. So there's room for it for sure.
Yeah. There's Space Channel 5. There's Rez, Panzer Dragoon, Knights, Shinobi, Virtua Fighter, Altered Beast, House of the Dead, Streets of Rage. I mean, there's two you just kind of think, what could they actually do with those? And Soul Hackers. So we could see more things there. You would have to wonder if they are looking over to, they're looking at Resi, right? Where, Resi has its issues. And this whole thing of, reboot, remake was so successful for Resident Evil. So I wonder if that's really a lot of what they're thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, it comes fairly clearly that, trying to split up across the remaster, remake, reboot, I think anyone with any sort of, knowledge of these can easily just go, that goes there, that goes there, that goes there, that goes there. Everyone will be happy.
Yeah.
You can kind of see it as a glance. So obviously they have to work out the business side of making it possible. But there's, looking at it from my perspective, I can see all of these things selling perfectly in the right category.
Totally.
They just need to do it.
Yeah, so that's what they're doing with those. Then, of course, there's the Super Game Initiative. Now, this was all stuff from back in May. The new thing is the Microsoft Alliance. The Microsoft Alliance did seem decently aligned with whatever this Super Game Initiative is. Now, in terms of other things going on, apparently, they actually have a new FPS title at a European studio and the utilization of IP assets across remakes, reboots, and remasters. As for saying that in the European studio, we're thinking that's actually Creative Assembly, who are currently hiring for a brand new and exciting first-person shooter. You might think, what, the Total War people? FPS? Well, Alien Isolation. Not really. I mean, it's a first-person game, and I mean, shooting. A lot of people have done shooting. I'm sure they could do shooting well first time if they learned all the right lessons, so they could totally do a good job there. It's pretty interesting, isn't it? Yeah, so basically, as we see this, they're big sleeping giants. They have a lot of great IP they could bring back. They have a lot of great current IP. They're seemingly making big investments for the future.
Yep, that's the one thing that people have always been really frustrated with Sega, because they have continually, pardon my language, but fucked up Sonic. They've continually ruined that brand time and time again. But all of the times they ruin it never seems to stick. People seem to be so happy with it overall and in general that that movie did exceptionally well.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of wondering how that's possible. But Sonic Mania came out and everyone went oh, Sonic, that dead franchise no one likes. Oh, Sonic Mania, this is everything we've wanted. Holy shit. So they just need to actually figure out what their 2022 game looks like and do it properly. And this is going to be a little bit rude, but now that Yuji Naka is nowhere near them, they might have some sort of hope, because Yuji Naka was the person who was very much Knights, very much Sonic, but Balan Wonderland, that game that Square Enix basically tried to do some historical revisionism of. Just that didn't exist. Let's not talk about it. Sell it for a tenner. No one please ever mention it again. It was that bad. So without that team working on it, they might have hoped for the next Sonic game, because it was even that anniversary concert they did. I remember watching that and going, whoever's organizing this actually knows what Sonic fans want.
Yeah.
So I think if they can keep that in the game, then they might be able to fully revive the game side of that franchise as well.
And for solid numbers, the Sonic brand sold 4.4 million games last year with no releases.
No good games
So
either.
that's great. Then, of course, Atlas, they're a subsidiary of Sega. I mean, they just have pure gold, right? As Adam points out, all they have to do is re-release the back catalog of Persona and SMT games on Switch and PC, and they'll be swimming in money. Yep.
It's Persona 4 Golden passed 500k in no time after basically a surprise release on Steam, and everyone's just going, where's 3? Where's 5? People will destroy those games at any price you put on them. Like Persona, and I don't know how much Striker sold on Steam. I might need to check that up. The Persona 5 sequel that was a Musou game instead of being another Persona game for whatever reason, because Atlas are just mental. But there's this idea of if they just throw P5 Royal, obviously they might have an agreement with Sony to deal with because it was exclusively there. But if they throw that on PC, that'll sell like crazy. The entire back catalog of Shin Megami Tensei games will sell like crazy. Not like millions, but combined millions. They'll all be very profitable games because none of them are available like modern consoles at all, and there's a massive hunger for them, especially people who first hopped on to the SMT stuff with Persona 5 or hopping on to Shin Megami Tensei 5, which is out in like a week or no 10 days I think from this. So there's just so much there that people would absolutely jump at. They just need to actually do it.
And then one that like I didn't get to, but 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim.
Yeah.
Like looks really cool, and its reviews are like incredible.
That's the thing. People were like, Vanillaware particularly got laughed at in the past because of the stuff over Dragon's Crown, the kind of fights and that they had with Kotaku over that, like Odin Sphere and stuff. All really, really good games, like beautifully presented. And everyone who played 13 Sentinels is like, this is Game of the Year material in terms of how it's executed its niche. It is literally unbelievably good. Atlas published it, and it's all just kind of quiet. But if they can actually just push on that a little bit more, drop it on a couple more platforms, use some of that accolades, I think they could do extremely well. It's just, they've got so much potential, and they're not doing anything with it yet. And I think this is them kind of waking up a little bit, or at least I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also just Japanese stuff's doing really well in the West. Tales of Arise did super well. Yakuza did super well on Game Pass. Final Fantasy XIV is sweeping through the West, doing incredibly well. So there is this like new wave, and I think as more people are, I mean, here's a great example. Now that I'm playing loads of FF14, is my likelihood of hopping over to Tales of Arise higher or lower? It's higher, because most of the people that I saw talk about FF14 before I properly got into it, I also saw them tweet about Tales of Arise. So I think this is a pretty damn good time to be, just to be a Japanese publisher, really. Yeah.
One of the ones I'll highlight is Spike Chunsoft, because they recently talked about Danganronpa, and that game, I think it's literally, because it had a PlayStation release and a Vita release, and it was all sort of doing okay and whatever else. But then they released them on PC in a package focused for the West, and they got something like somewhere between 1.5 and 3 million extra sales from PC, and it was the Western PC sales that made up the majority of their sales. So they're like, oh wait, what have we been doing this whole time? There is a real hunger for this stuff, which I'm sure a lot of people look at it and go, well, Danganronpa, that's really weird, that's kind of crazy. That has no place in the West. But the size of the niche for that stuff is actually gigantic. It's still a niche compared to what the Sony first parties would be looking at.
It's not The Last of Us, but it's big.
Yeah, and that's the thing where I think that they're learning this. I think strategically they're learning it very slowly, but they have learned it all.
Yeah.
Because Capcom are even in the same boat. They're like, why have we not been throwing this shit at the West for years?
Capcom are further ahead in the curve than Sega are, but you just need to look at Capcom to see how incredibly successful it's been. I mean, the whole Monster Hunter thing just put a smile on everyone's face, because it was like, oh wait, they just, in their traditional fashion, made a great game and a great expansion for the game, and they both sold really well because everyone was really happy, and they didn't pull any of the annoying bullshit that we're used to the Western companies pulling. Oh, cool, we're happy.
Yep, and that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping Sega can kind of look and go, can we just borrow that strategy, but with all of our IP that we have a lot of trust in? I mean, I think they generally lack the development talent that Capcom do overall, but they do have it. They do have the access to that. They have the resources. So there's nothing stopping them from actually going, yeah, here's loads of great games, everyone. Have fun.
Yeah, so I think even if the big quadruple A-ish super game initiative doesn't do super well, they still have a bunch. I mean, they still have a bunch with what they're currently doing. And yeah, look, I think now is a really good time to get more into indie games, and it's a really good time to get more into Japanese games.
Definitely.
I think sometimes it can feel there's like maybe a little bit of a lull with the Western games. Maybe some of the big Western games are like tied up in the consoles, the exclusivity and all of that. And there's just a lot of really incredible third-party content that's coming out. So it's honestly, this is a bit of a through line of a lot of our recent videos. It is a really good time to be playing games. There are so many great games coming out, even within the next month or two. February is going to be insane for games. And I'm sure in a year or two, maybe 3, we'll have a bunch more Sega in that. So there you have it. That's what's going on with Sega and Microsoft. I suppose there was a final thing. Some people were thinking that maybe Microsoft would buy Sega.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's more likely now that they are closer and closer. Or you could maybe say it's less likely because instead of an acquisition, they're just going for a big alliance. And I mean, frankly, Sega would probably be quite expensive.
I think someone worked it out a while ago. It would cost them around $5 billion for Sega, something like that.
Bethesda was sorry, ZeniMax was 6.
Yeah, 6 or 7 around that.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
I think so. Anyway, just because they own so much IP and they have so much resources, it's just that's the thing. They're a sleeping giant. No one knows how big they are because they're not releasing any bastard games.
Yeah. So there you go. Good luck, Sega. Got us some great games. That's it for us. Of course, I was going to say there was content on the chat. No, I was going to say there was channel in the content. No, there was content on the channel yesterday. There will be tomorrow. So, subscribe and all of said such things. Thanks for watching. See you next time.